up, everybody? My name is Brad, and welcome back to the second annual Brad's Book Awards, where I've been talking about all my favorite reads from last year in 2021. And today is the grand finale, our fifth and final category, where I'm going to be talking about my top 5 horror novels I read last year in 2021. And I thought last episode narrowing down the top 5 novellas was tough. This one was a way harder task, especially the top 3, to narrow those down and put one above the other. Some absolutely masterpiece type of books on this list today. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into it and not waste any more time. My top 5 favorite horror novels from last year, 2021. So coming in at number 5 is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This was my first Grady Hendrix read, and I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It's a bit tongue-in-cheek, a bit lighthearted at times, but it does get very dark and very disgusting at times as well. It's a vampire story. We all know I love vampires, and that might be why it elevated somewhat on the list, because it has to do with vampires. But this takes place in the 80s I think it was South Carolina, North Carolina, with this group of moms that they don't really have anything to do other than they're stay-at-home moms. They're supposed to cook and clean and take care of the kids all day and all that stuff. And our main character, she doesn't want that life. She does not want that for herself. She's bored with that life. So to try to put some sort of excitement into her life, she joins a book club, and it ends up turning into a true crime book club. And someone moves into the neighborhood who's kind of creepy, kind of suspicious, and they kind of think he might be a vampire, and it goes on from there. I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was funny at times. It was gruesome. It's not super vampire-y, I guess you could say, but still a really fun book. It was a lot of fun for my first Grady Hendrix book. I'm definitely going to be checking out more of his work. But coming in at my number 5 spot is the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. Coming in at my number 4 spot, this is an older book that I finally got around to reading it last year in 2021, and that is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. Now, I'm not going to go into the details about what the plot is. Everyone knows the plot of The Exorcist. I'm sure if you haven't seen the movie, you've at least seen gifs of it and all that kind of stuff. It's a possession story. We have Reagan, this little girl. She gets possessed by this demon, and they try to exorcise that demon out of her. But the reason I am putting it on this list is I listened to the audiobook. I listened to the 40th anniversary edition of the audiobook, which was narrated by the author himself, William Peter Blatty. And he did an absolutely stellar job with the narration here, especially the parts where demonic Reagan is talking were just absolutely unsettling and chilling. He has this gruff, gravelly, deep voice, and those scenes where demonic Reagan were talking was absolutely horrifying. They literally did give me goosebumps at certain points. If you have not read the book, or if you're maybe looking to reread it, I highly, highly, highly recommend checking out the audiobook edition if it's the one that William Peter Blatty himself narrates, because it is stellar. I can't say much more about it than that. He did an amazing job with the narration. It was even creepier than the movie. The voice from the movie was not as creepy as the author's voice narrating those scenes with Reagan. Great book overall, though. Great demonic possession story. Very great creepy religious horror. Number 4 on my list is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. I'm next at number 3, and I thought narrowing down the novellas the other day was hard, but narrowing down these top 3 horror novels and putting one above the other was it was basically torture trying to pick one above the other. All of these top 3, all the top 5 are great, but these top 3 are exceptionally fantastic. Everyone should read these books. They would be number 1 on anyone's list. But coming in at number 3 is Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. This is a cannibal novel, but what's different about this one is it's not some weird tribe out in the jungle, a bunch of savages eating people. This is global cannibalism. Cannibalism on a global scale, but it's become normal. It's just a normal day-to-day type of thing, and no one really blinks an eye, bats an eye at it. It just is a way of life now. And the way this book was set up, the world building really caught me off guard. The depth, the level of detail that the author went to in the world building was astounding, and I was totally not expecting that and it's a pretty short novel. It's only about just about 200 pages. The level of depth here is unreal for how short the book is. There's been a virus that has sort of infected all animals on Earth, and it's deadly to humans. So we can't eat any animals. We can't interact with any animals. So what have we turned to for a food source? We've turned to other humans. And it doesn't just go through the quick, oh, it's a slaughterhouse where they kill humans and we eat them. It's so much detail going on there. I was just, like I said, blown away by it. And it felt so realistic. Like if this was a news story on the local news today on the ticker at the bottom, I would totally believe that's actually what's happening because it felt so realistic. I loved it. I loved her writing. I hope she comes out with more stuff translated into English. I really want to read more from her. In the ending, man, the ending caught me off guard. The ending was just like a smack to the face. It was fantastic. I think it's being turned into a movie or a series. I believe I read that somewhere. I hope it really is because I want to see this played out in visual on television or on the movie theater. But coming in at my number 3 spot is Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bastarrica. Up next at my number 2 spot is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. And I don't even know what to say about this book. It absolutely blew me away. It made my jaw drop. I don't want to give anything about this book away. I've said it already on the channel in other videos, but I could not have been more wrong about what I thought was going on with this book than I was. It's sort of a thriller, mystery, kind of detective story going on here. We don't really get the full picture until the end when all the pieces are put together. We're following different characters. We're following Ted. We're following his cat, a cat's perspective. And we're following, I can't remember the other names of the character. I think it was Laura. Different perspectives throughout the book. And they all interweave and intertwine together. But you're led to believe one thing. And it seems super obvious and simple. You're like, okay, that's what's going on. And then something else will happen. You're like, okay, no, it's actually probably this instead. You're like, okay, this is what's going on. And then more events will happen. You're like, no, and actually it's switching back over to here. She kept me on my toes. Ward kept me on my toes throughout the whole thing, just guessing and guessing what was actually going on. What is the truth? What is the mystery going on behind all this stuff? And it was amazing. Like I said, there was one point where I thought I finally had everything figured out. We're getting near the end of the book. It's like, surely this is everything now. Surely there can't be anything else. And she just hit me with the sledgehammer. It literally made my jaw drop, like mind blown. I couldn't believe that's actually what was happening at that certain point. It's a stellar novel. It's full of mystery and intrigue. You really not sure who to trust, who not to trust. There's all these little clues along the way. I really want to go back and reread it because while you're reading it, you're like, this doesn't make sense because this certain thing was blue in this chapter and now this certain thing is green in this chapter or whatever it was. Like, what are these inconsistencies for? And you finally figure out everything at the end. It was perfectly wrapped up in a nice bow, a masterpiece of a novel. But my number 2 book is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. And the final book on my list, my number 1 horror novel for 2021. Go ahead and hit the drum roll. My number 1 horror novel is The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. This book was also a masterpiece. I read it way back, I think this time last year. So it's been over about a year ago when I read this book. I still remember quite a bit about it. It really stuck with me. I will be honest, at first I wasn't really into the writing style. Like the story was good, but I wasn't really jiving with the writing style. Something just felt a bit off about it. And if you've ever listened to an interview with Stephen Graham Jones, he wrote this book like the way he talks. It's sort of written in this cadence. And I was reading it too fast, so I had to slow down, pace myself, and those commas are there for a reason. I paused at those commas, and it just started to flow once I did that. Once I slowed down and read it at sort of a slower pace, pausing when I'm supposed to pause at those commas, it all fell into place. And I was along for the story, I was enjoying it, but there's this one particular moment in the book, and I don't want to give anything away, I won't say what it was, but it hit me like a sledgehammer. It was just this whirlwind of this rapid fire activity, these back-to-back set pieces, these things that happen, and it just was like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe the author went there, and I was fully on board. I was totally down for what was going on for the rest of the book. It completely changed the book from that point on, and I was all about it. This book, it is marvelous. It's a masterpiece. It's a bit supernatural. There's Native American folklore in here. It's part slasher. It's kind of part creature feature. There's a lot going on here. And I've really never read anything like it. It was utterly unique and complex and deep. And I loved every single thing about this book. I don't know what else to say about it. It was a masterpiece. But my number 1 read for 2021 was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. And that's it. Congratulations to all of the winners for my top 5 horror novels I read last year in 2021. You can't go wrong with any of the books on this list, especially those top three. They are just perfection, as close to perfection as a book can be, in my opinion. But did you have a top horror novel you read last year? Let me know down in the comments. If you read any of these, any of my favorites, let me know what you thought about them down in the comments as well. But that's all I have for you guys today, so thank you for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.